All right, Jake, look.
What's this?
Bro, this is the Hokey Pokey protein powder. It's New Zealand whey protein, isolate, grass-fed. I'm going to have the Electro Plus.
Beautiful.
Sorry I didn't do 2 drinks. But I'm going to have this. I think we're going to have this every single time before. I know you just finished your workout.
Yeah, that's
How good does that taste?
Beautiful.
To be honest. This is the raspberry flavour. This is on the Electro Plus. But that's also got your BCAAs and your aminos in there as
Got
well.
everything. That's really nice, mate. That tastes fucking unbelievable.
Was that the first time you tasted that
That's the first time I've tasted that
one? That's
one.
what I like to surprise
I had
everyone.
the choc wafer.
The choc
that
wafer's
was
nice too,
good.
bro.
Yeah, it is
But
nice.
this here is making me focus more, giving me more mental clarity, so I can start to give you my opinion
That's what we
on the
want.
week, bro. On the week, I mean, geez, rugby league. There's a lot happening.
It's a game that just keeps on giving, isn't it?
But I was just talking to a guy
Yep.
that's pretty high up in the rugby league circles, and
Yeah.
I said, Manly done really well. He said, thanks to Lachie Galvin.
Oh, yeah, the headlines.
The headlines, depending on where the headlines are,
Yep.
they took it away from Cherry Evans.
Yep.
But let's dive into it, bro. What's the first topic we want to talk about today?
We'll stay on the Tigers contract saga. It appears it's sort of died down a little bit, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, 10 days of hammering that narrative was enough, I think. You know, and it looks like now maybe, you know, considering the way he played on the weekend, because I watched the Tigers play because I wanted to see what Leichhardt looked like, and it was chockers there.
Yes.
They got to play those games there. But Galvin played really well. Set up the first try. I think he set up another. He saved a match winner.
That right at the end there.
At the boot. So competing and doing his job doesn't seem to be a problem there. So I'm starting, you know, knowing nothing about the inner sanctum, what's going on there. It appears it hasn't really affected his dedication to the team. Would you agree with that?
Well, you know what's interesting, bro? After we spoke to Steve Gillies, a.k.a. Chimes, what you realise is that the player managers try not to get involved in the club they're going to go to.
Yep.
Right? And I get a rugby league manager's perspective on that was great.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, here I am thinking Isaac Moses is the problem.
Yep.
Which, look, possibly, yes, right? But it changed my perspective on him. I watched, probably before we interviewed Chimes, I watched a clip on Lachie Galvin.
Yep.
And how much team means to him. As a schoolboy going, you know, they lost I think it was the final.
Yep.
Coming back, winning that and beating the Queensland team. And how they trained so hard in that off-season with those group of players. So my opinion had changed before that about Lachie Galvin, but when he was in the headlines, I was thinking, mate, who is this young kid at 19 that's getting offered all this money and turning his back on the Tigers, right? So, yeah, it changed my perspective. But when you win, Jake, it changes everything. Even Benji said the pressure valve's been released.
Yeah, and that's the big form and winning changes the narrative,
Everything,
and that's what I mean is he got thrown to the wolves a little bit, but due to the fact that the Tigers want to keep him, the management want to move him for whatever the reasoning, and there was a clash, and now a contract from the Tigers has been taken off the table, apparently, allegedly, right? Got dropped due to senior players, coach's decision, maybe a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Played the week in New South Wales Cup, got brought back into the Tigers due to one of the wingers got injured, so there was a backline reshuffle. His position opened up, they jam him straight back in there. They go to the Heartland, Leichhardt Oval, put a massive win against the Cronulla Sharks, who have a great team, winning Golden Point. I think it's up and up for the Tigers. I hope moving forward that whatever the contract negotiations are, it just stays over there and his name doesn't really get dragged into it, because we do have the tendency to just always pinpoint the player at times.
This is how I see it, right? This part's settled, right? What the manager should do is, if he's going to ask for a release, which may happen, you know, end of the year, after, I think it's November 1, right?
Yes.
They should not talk about it until then.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Just to keep everything out now. And if he does ask for a release, it's got to be after the season, November 1. But it depends on the egos, I believe. Like, you know, if the management starts to prod the manager or the player, if they can keep everything out of it, and look, the media has a role to play with it.
Yep.
And if he asks for the release after the season's finished, at least the season's finished and they can move on. And that's going to benefit the Tigers a lot more. At the end of the day, like we've seen that in rugby league so many times this year already, wherever the talk goes or the attention from the media, that team seems to falter and go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's what's happened. And, you know, I just hope the halves, Luai and Galvin, you know, can galvanise that team and work together. He's a young player. You know, the best way to sometimes leave in a situation like that is going, you know what, let's just train together, work together. Let's put our best foot together.
Yep.
Let's see where the season takes us. And whatever you decide to do at the end, man, it's up to you.
And I think that's where the energy is at, because at the end of the day, all the boys get it.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to cash in on what they can.
Yeah.
Just didn't get handled probably the best way it could have.
Well, the Chimes said it perfectly.
And let's talk about Chimes. We had the great man on last week on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's good. I haven't seen Chimes in a couple of years.
Yeah.
It was great to run into him. Very smart man.
Yeah, he is.
Very smart man. And it was good to get a player manager's perspective for a player manager that does stuff for the players.
One thing he said to me before the podcast, and you've seen the questions that I sent here, he said, ask me the tough questions.
Yep.
And he answered them perfectly. Like he gave me a different look at the game.
Yep.
And, you know, I've known Chimes for 15 years.
Yep.
And I've been out with him. And during those times where, you know, the Jared Mullen incident happened, the big incidents when they were happening in that period there, and you could see you could see that it was affecting him. But one thing he said to me, Jake, and I think you caught that as well, where he said, just keep going.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yep.
And as a player manager, when you're going through all of that, you know, when there's like 2, 3, there was the DeBellin, there was the Mullen, it all happened like, you know, consecutively.
Yep.
He cares a lot about the players.
Yep.
You know, you heard that, you know, he was staying at Jared Mullen's parents' house. He had a great relationship with them.
Yep.
You know, that would have had a huge effect on him, and especially the way that whole thing got handled. And you know, like, we have had Jared Mullen on here.
Yep.
So it was good to get the insight from Chimes. I didn't think he was going to answer the questions that way.
Yep.
I thought when he said, ask me anything,
Yep.
I thought, you know, he didn't bag anyone.
No.
He didn't bag the clubs. He didn't bag anyone, and that caught me by surprise.
Yeah. I processed the interview on my drive home, and I thought I sat there and I thought, it's a high pressure job, regardless of what other people think. When I sort of sat there, I'm like, yeah, well, he's dealing with 80 to 90 players from union and rugby league, and I was sort of sitting there and I'm like, I started feeling bad for all the times I used to pester him, you know, when I was going through whatever I was going through. But then I sort of...
So he was your manager too?
Yeah, Chimes was my manager, you know, and he was very good for me, you know, and that's why he said, you know, where that I was very humbled by what he said in the conversation as well about owning.
Did you know all that? Because obviously, because you're going through rugby league, you're going through your own issues. But did you understand, like, it's hard to understand when you're in it, right?
My mindset was me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I did not at that time think really outside of myself. But when we sat here and, you know, my perspective on life and myself and other people now has changed, I sort of was like, you know what? Knowing what he was trying to do back then for certain things, and I was like, you know what? He is actually someone you can lean on in the rugby league space. And I was, you know, I feel pretty privileged that I got, you know, to spend some time with him in that space. Penrith coming last, Mets. I didn't think I'd see that, and the way that they're there, they're not winning, and that's obviously cliche, but the games that I have watched of them, they're very disjointed.
You know, after watching him in Vegas, I thought, fuck,
they're going again.
Here we go again, right? I don't think anyone expected them to be sitting last. There's no way in the world. So then, when you start to take a good look at it, and I think everyone's going to have differing opinions, but, you know, Luai played a large chunk of the last 2 seasons in those halves without his halves partner in Cleary, right? And look, everyone can have, you know, their hypothesis, and I could be wrong, you know, but I just think Luai coming from that region, growing up with those guys and those players, I think he galvanised the side a lot more than he got given credit for.
Yep.
And for many years, you know, Luai was looked as the sore, winner. You know, he used to win, then rub it in people's faces.
Yep.
And he got a lot of bad raps for it. And
Yep.
even with the Lachie Galvin situation, you know, they've come out and tried to attack him sort of again, trying to galvanise them what he done in Penrith.
Yep.
And I don't know if he gets enough credit for that because people have come after him for so many years.
Yep.
And he I believe, like, forget his talent, I think he was the guy that was the glue to galvanise a team together when they were struggling. You know what I mean? Forget what he done on the field, you know, the breaks he made, tackles he made and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that part where he glued everyone together, I think they're missing that.
Yep, I agree with you. And then my view along with it is Fisher Harris. Now, being aware of what a presence someone is when they don't really talk, but they lead.
Yeah.
And I think obviously Luai's energy at training, communication, being a half, you know, and he did at stages drag that team along with him when Nathan was out. But I think Fisher Harris is up there, if not a little bit past in Penrith, you know, being missed by Penrith due to the fact that around training, I reckon he held a standard. And I'm not saying that any players there maybe have dropped off, but I've heard stories when people were, you know, fucking around, he'd just sort of give you the look or, you know, out on the field and, you know, that holds weight. And a bloke that's going out taking 15 to 20 carries, doing his, you know, 30 to 35 tackles along with an offload, your kick chases, when you remove that from your team, someone's got to come in and do that. And I don't think a player's really taken that role on yet. I think it'll start to come, hopefully for them, halfway through the year, start of next year. But I see them still making the 8 due to the fact at some stage they have to click. And when they do click, it could be scary for the other teams.
Do you think Leota's missing him? His front row partner?
I think they're missing the 1-2 punch. They've got the one punch with Leota, but he was usually the two. It was Fisher Harris than him.
And also, do you think, like, the head depth?
Yep.
The depth's thin now. Like, who do you bring in, right? They don't have that anymore.
I think they thought maybe one of their juniors or their their role players was going to step up. They bought Papali'i, remember? From Parramatta, and he sort of hasn't, in my opinion, gone to where I think they thought he was going to go to for them. And, you know, it doesn't help too. I think Mitch Kenny's a massive cog in that team, and he's been out the last couple of weeks. And it was funny when Braith was on here. Remember when we spoke? The Las Vegas curse. They went over there and pumped him, and then they've come back and they've sort of, that's the curse that's sort of come
It's
upon
funny,
them.
Canberra and Warriors are travelling pretty good, though. They're travelling pretty good. Like, I mean, Canberra's travelling not bad. I mean, that half-time spray
Sticky's
from
got him
Ricky.
Humming. He's got him humming.
Yeah, for that half-time spray, I watched it. And I think that worked tremendously well, especially being Anzac Day. And how much it means to him and the team. Now I created this podcast studio because I loved creating these types of clips, videos, and helping people. But more importantly, we're in the most iconic place in the world. The beach is just down the road, 100 metres across the road. And it's over 4 levels. It has absolutely everything. From HIIT, boxing, spin, yoga, Pilates, spin, and more. Did I say spin twice? And soon to be reformer Pilates. That's how much I love this place. I repeat myself all the time. I can't wait to see her at Tighter Fitness. Get down here, over and out.
They said that they got their character challenged.
Let me ask you a question, man. I was around a lot of people on Anzac weekend. A lot of young people. They're saying it's their favourite holiday.
Anzac Day.
Yeah, they're saying it's their favourite. They feel something.
Yeah.
Do the players, like, you played on Anzac Day. What does it feel like, be honest?
You walk out the tunnel and you're presented to the stadium and, you know, it's, 30, 35, 40,000 people, and then all of a sudden it's dead silence. It's eerie, you know, and you sort of look around and everyone's just focused on, you know, paying their respects. And then as soon as that minute of silence is done and, what is said, what needs to be said is said. You go straight back into footy mode, and the roar of the crowd comes back in. Your mind starts ticking back into game mode, and you got to get ready to play a game. But it was a privilege to play those sorts of games, and you watch the footy on the weekend. The only stuff that sort of made me not want to watch it was some of the silly penalties that have been.
Is that one of your headlines there? The silly penalties?
Yeah, it is. Well, Abdo, as an example, right? I read things in the paper yesterday because mate, the spectacle of the game's getting destroyed.
It's terrible, bro.
It's really bad. I'm a big advocate for someone who's high profile within the game and Andrew John's come out and gave his thoughts for 2-3 minutes on the footy show, which is perfect. Like, that needs to be said. And those sorts of high caliber, high profile people that understand the fabric of rugby league need to say it. Because Abdo apparently said, we haven't said anything. Well, that's a lie.
That's a lie, man. I watched the whole interview.
Yeah.
And they were pressing him.
Yeah.
And then they pulled back, and Buzz Rothfield said, well, I'm going to pull up stats same time as last year.
Yeah.
He goes, it was half the amount of penalties given. What he's going to do magic round. So, obviously, you're going to see less penalties. You're going to see less happen magic round because of this pressure from the media. Yeah. There's no way in the world he didn't say or talk to the referees. There was penalties there, bro. Like, they weren't even a penalty, and players were getting sent for 10 minutes.
What annoys me?
They almost ruined the Tigers game. There was no way that player could come off.
They've ruined portions of games the last 4 or 5 weeks. But the thing that annoyed me the most is he goes, oh yeah, the bunker's getting their nose too invested in the game. You're telling them to be involved in the game.
Did you see what Brafe done after that?
What?
He goes, wait a second, let me show you how many times the referee's got it wrong. And he was showing them.
Yeah.
He goes, we can't just blame the bunker.
And I'll tell you what, I think it was all planned, right? Remember 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said, he come out and he said everyone needs to get off the referees' backs. Then all of a sudden, all these penalties come into play. Referees, regardless of what you think, are directed to referee games a certain way. And if you don't believe me, you look at the competition, then you look at Origin time.
Yeah, of course.
The game's refereed 2 different ways. Final series the same, right?
Bro, even at extra time, it's refereed differently.
Yeah, because they don't want to. They don't
want to be responsible for the result.
100%.
You watch extra time. You watch how many penalties they don't allow, like they just let go. You look at how many offsides there are during extra time.
Well, they're told to push the envelope.
100%.
And that's the thing. Like, rugby league's a contact. That's like Dana White coming out and go, "Hey guys, like when you punch them in the face, just like don't try and break their jaw. Yeah. Punch them in the head, but like it's a contact sport. You're gonna get hit in the head. You're going to fall awkwardly on certain things. Even what Wayne said the other day about the tackle when people fall off on the legs, it's accidental.
Yep.
That some of, unless there's a swinging arm, you don't need to blow a penalty and send someone to 10 or fine them or make them miss a week due to a uncontrollable glancing slap or a shoulder like it's rugby league.
It's rugby league, yeah.
It's rugby league. It's just what it is. My big thing. Cobbo at fullback for the Broncos.
Well, the thing is, who else can go there?
Mate, there are different...
Are you saying he can't move around as much as he needs to move around to be able to, save tackles, run the ball back, link up in the back line,
I'm saying if I'm playing against the Broncos and Reece Walsh is out the back, I'm worried. If Selwyn Cobbo's out the back, I'm worried times 5. Due to the fact...
so you're saying it's a good move?
I reckon it's a great move.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand Reece Walsh is out at the moment, but the only reason I say this is he's bigger, right? So Reece Walsh will beat you with speed, deception, Cobbo's frame, when he comes around the back, if you've created an overlap, your winger, your centre and your half, they're all looking at him because he has the ability to beat people. It's like when Greg Inglis was in his prime.
Yeah.
6'3", 100 kilos, can move like the wind, will fend your fucking head off, pass the ball, kick it. Reece Walsh can do all those things too, but the
But the
frame's
mistakes.
just a little bit smaller. You know,
And
and
the
it does
mistakes
matter.
too. They reckon, but here's a thing. You talk about Cobbo. Do you think Cobbo at fullback last week, because he was fullback, right?
Yes.
Helped beat the Bulldogs? This is why I'm asking you, because I've seen it. They said with Cobbo there, it was just more predictable what their players were, and they weren't going to make mistakes. Because at the end of the day, Reece Walsh has got a lot of mistakes in him. So that helped the game, and, mate, it was pouring there.
The
And that first half was unbelievable.
Yep. Carrigan and Huss
Yeah, they took
set
the ball
the
up.
platform.
Yeah.
The Bulldogs, I thought, were a little bit off, and they were due for a loss.
Yeah.
Like, if to be honest.
Yeah.
But the Broncos, the masterclass by Adam Reynolds, genius play. It all just looked like a lot of things just fell into place.
Well, here's one for you. If Reece is out for the next 5 weeks and they're winning, what does Madge do?
Rugby league, you put him back to fullback, right? But what it does is it drives Cobbo's price up on the market because he'll get signed for fullback money. Now, the thing is with the Broncos, they've got all these outside backs that can play these different positions.
Yeah.
Mariner, centre, wing, fullback.
Yeah.
Same as Cobbo.
Yeah.
Reece Walsh is an out-and-out fullback. That's why he's there. He's the marquee guy, the good-looking dude, has all the skills in the world, current origin fullback. So I understand, but for me, when I look at a team, I like big, intimidating bodies.
Yeah.
And Reece Walsh has just got that body type that's slick,
Yeah.
whereas Cobbo's a little bit more intimidating, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the Broncos look different with him at fullback.
They did.
They look different.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because, then you've got Reece Walsh that comes back.
Yeah.
Cobbo goes back to, and then you've got two of them on the field.
Yeah.
Maybe they let Cobbo be a bit more of a roamer.
I read that it's going to be hard for Cleary to make it. You got Moses, you got Luai.
It's a big talking point.
Those two halves done really well for New South Wales last year, right? There's also, there's more positions, but that one there is going to be the most contentious. I think, after watching Moses last week, coming back from a massive layoff, the impact that he had on Parramatta, right? I think there's going to be a big call this year, right? And I could be wrong, but I'm going to throw it out there. I think it's Moses Luai in the halves.
It's a big talking point, isn't it?
How would Cleary feel if he's not picked? Do you think it actually helps him and Penrith's season if he doesn't get picked?
Mate, the only reason why he'd be upset is because I feel, looking at it, I don't know if he's been playing that bad for Penrith. Like, he's had moments where he hasn't been his normal self, but they do pick off what you look at, team success. But Nathan Cleary, in my opinion, he's the best player in the competition. You know what I mean? They're just going through a slump, and that's bound to come when you've won 4 grand finals in a row and been involved in 5 of them in a row. I think it adds to his story, because if he pulls them out of the shit and they make the 8, it just adds to his story. You know what I mean? I just think it's a battle between him and Moses for 7, because I don't think they can actually play together. I think they're 2 ball-dominant halves, and you need the one voice.
Yeah.
And that's where the battle's going to be. Maybe they pick them both. But if I'm picking the team, you got to either have Nathan or Mitch. Then you look at your 6. Now, Luai's probably in with a massive chance. I love Burton.
Yeah.
Again, bigger body. Do you know what I mean? Bigger body, left foot kicking game, ball runner.
Yeah.
Can sit him, park him on that side of the field. Has the ability to play centre if you need him to.
Yeah. I think Burton, for me, is more of a bench player.
Yeah. Well,
for New South Wales.
That's also a way
because
that
if I'm picking the team, I'm looking for versatility in the back line.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, how many positions can he play? He can play halves, centres.
Yep.
You can move the rest of the guys around if you have to.
That's his versatility.
He needs to be in the 17.
Yep.
Burton has to be in the 17.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think you may be right. I think going off form right now and what they look at, but also saying Mitch has only played 1 game. So it's hard. And he's come back and just set the comp alight.
Yeah.
But it does add a narrative in that story on Who do they pick for the 7?
Look, he helped them last year.
Yep.
And if it was me picking, I would pick those 2 for the halves because they done really well last season.
Yeah.
Look, they're not going to really go too wrong with picking Cleary, but I just think Mitchell Moses and Luai playing together seems to be a better fit.
I'll put this.
Now, everyone's watching these podcasts. They're loving myself, Kenny, Jake. But the best part about it is I love this studio. I don't have to do anything. These lights are turned on. The camera guys are there. The producers are there. They do absolutely everything. They can't make it any easier to create a podcast. And you know what the best part about it is? You're going to have content for the rest of your life and you're going to be able to watch these podcasts. Your grandkids are going to be able to watch these podcasts. These guys make it super simple. So why not hire this studio out? Hit the link in the bio and let's see you here.
I think they picked Nathan due to the fact he's been there, the last 3-4 series, even though Mitch won it there last year. If Nathan's fit, I think they go with him. Again, I could be wrong. But I think he's one of those players that if he goes into the Origin arena, that might kickstart him back into his 10 out of 10 form. And I tell you, I've got another one for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tedesco at fullback.
They was talking about Pappenhausen as well, right? But look, if you said to me, Mets, who would you pick tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'd pick Teddy.
I picked Tedesco. Right?
He's playing well, mate.
I thought Tedesco should have played last year off the bat, and he ended up getting the first game, but was out for the other ones. But I think we're just so used to him playing 9 and 9.5 out of 10s a game because he's done it for a decade.
Bro, Dylan Edwards is carrying something.
I think he's playing injured.
He's playing injured, man, because if I look at the efforts from last year to the efforts from this year, he's playing injured. He's not right.
Yeah.
He's not right. There's something wrong.
That could be with Nathan too. There could be some niggles because they've been riding high.
Yeah.
They've been riding high.
I just want to finish with one thing. I don't know if you watched this. I've been watching the whole press conference. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Connor Ben. It was a massive fight in England.
Yeah.
So the fathers fought in the 90s.
Yeah.
And there was this big battle between the fathers. Chris Eubank hasn't spoken to his dad for 2 years, shows up to the fight. Bro, I watched this fight. What a battle.
Was it good one?
Bro, they weren't fighting for themselves.
No.
The commentators, Tottenham Hotspur's ground was packed, chockers. And they've never seen a fight like that. The fathers had never seen them fight that way. And the reason I say that, I was watching this whole spectacle, there was a proper hatred from these two guys, yeah?
Towards each other.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it stems from the dads. The dads fought battles back in the day, like that in the boxing ring. It was massive in England. And the only reason I mention it, I love sports, I love spectacles. I love the build-ups, I like the theatrics, you know what I mean? And, you know, like you look at rugby league and we talk a lot about, you know, there's so much happening in the media, players are leaving, that. It makes the spectacle even better. I mean, but, you know, you got to take the referees out of it. And the reason I mention it, Chris Eubank's life, the dad, think about it, world champion, made a lot of money, went to private schools, everything. It was a real true Rocky story, right?
Yeah.
At 14, they lose everything.
Bullshit.
Everything.
Yeah.
His brother passes away 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, stops talking to the dad.
Yeah.
The dad used to train him and he's not listening to him anymore.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't going to turn up to the fight. There was interviews of him prior to it going, you shouldn't make a middleweight fight a 147 and meet in the middle with a dehydration clause. His dad was going off and he goes, it's up to the media. He goes, you guys are the problem. He goes, you should be talking and stopping this fight. Anyway, it was probably one of the best fights they've seen in England for over 20 years, like over 20, 30 years. They've never seen anything like it. But, and what I loved about it, it's almost like life in itself, right? What these guys had to go through to get there. And Chris Eubank at the end of the fight, bro, went 12 rounds. Like, I mean, these guys went toe to toe. 12 rounds. I'm talking toe to toe.
We'll have to
Chris
watch the
Eubank
highlights.
goes, I didn't expect that from Conor Ben. I didn't train for that
Oh, really?
because I didn't train for that.
Far
He goes,
out.
he surprised me.
Yeah.
And there's a 147 guy going up against a 160 guy. Obviously, they had to,
Catch weight.
It wasn't catch weight. It was 160. Eubank's probably a 168.
Yeah, okay.
Right. But when I heard Chris Eubank talk about like we had everything
Yeah.
and we lost everything, like pretty much like Rocky IV. And that's the best part about sport. See these stories, like see if the Tigers come back and do well, and Lachie Galvin comes back. If Manly go well after all of this, you know, it's the stories that we remember, right?
It's the sports narratives,
It
and
is.
that's like, I wish at times that's what was sort of just stuck to the story, not, you know. But they got to create the villain and the hero. I understand that it's like wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have the hero and the villain who comes in, and you know, it doesn't stop, does it? Because we know after this weekend, Magic Round, something will happen, and
Something's gonna
someone will
happen.
come out and set it alight. Someone won't go so
Yeah.
well. There's already coaches' heads coming on the chopping block. You can see now,
O'Brien
you
from
know,
Newcastle.
Flanagan and
Yeah.
the guy at Newcastle, O'Brien.
Yeah.
You know, they're starting to put a bit of attention
Yeah.
on them because they're not going too well. You know, so
That's the best part about sports.
yeah,
It's
is the
theatre,
stories. Yeah,
and we love watching it,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's real life stories. If you go watch the Eubank one,
I'm
go
going to.
watch the press conference where
Yeah.
he eggs him slaps him in the face with an egg.
oh fucking hell.
You got to see it. This is prior to it.
All right,
But
I'll
you got to
watch the
see
lead
the
up.
history of the last 2 years
Yeah.
when they've been going at each other.
Oh,
And
well.
even Piers Morgan interviews him
Oh yeah, the
prior
guy
to
that
the
does.
fight.
Yeah, he's the media
Mate, there
guy
was
there.
so much around this fight.
Yeah.
But if you want to go further, go back to the
fathers.
bloodbath of the fathers.
Yeah, that's what I might do.
You go back to the bloodbath they had, and then you watch this fight, and you'll see the bloodbath in this fight. And these guys left everything out in the ring. The commentators were almost speechless.
Perfect.
Eddie Hearn was the
Promoter.
but you got to see Chris Eubank how he goes after Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, as well.
It's mate. If you want to see proper theatre of boxing,
Yeah.
that's gone for generations. Unbelievable, man. But
No, I
that's
look forward
sport,
to
man.
it. I'll watch the highlights
Yeah.
of the fight.
Great work, bro.
Let's go.
That was good.